The Russian Aerospace Forces or Air Force has dispatched 140,000 sorties to attack the Ukrainian army in special military operations that have continued to this day. But so far, no victory has been won. Why? Let's see the detailed analysis. With the arrival of new military aid such as Western-style tanks and infantry fighting vehicles provided by NATO, the military conflict between Russia and Ukraine is likely to enter a new stage. After all, the current military potential of NATO has basically reached its limit. If this round of assistance still fails to decide the outcome, then the balance of victory will inevitably tilt towards the Russian army. Therefore, at this critical moment, everyone is also very curious about how the Russian army has performed in the past 13 months or so. For example, whether the Russian Air Forces, which has been criticized all the time, is collectively resisting orders and avoiding wars as some Western military experts say, or is it too weak? Although it is fully dispatched, there is still no sense of presence, or it is simply because the battlefield is too wide and there is too much fog, so it looks blank. In the past 2 days, the Russian Ministry of Defense and NATO each released a report, revealing part of the truth. According to a report from the Russian Ministry of Defense, since the beginning of the special military operation, the Russian Air Forces have completed 140,000 combat sorties, with an average of more than 300 sorties per day. Although this number should include the sorties of various types of helicopters, it is already a very outrageous number compared to the small-scale Air Force. It is equivalent to the fact that all the fighter planes invested in the direction of Ukraine need to dispatch at least 1.5 sorties per day, which means that the Russian Air Force must maintain a very high readiness rate and combat readiness level, and its maintenance and repair must be significantly higher than that of NATO nation. This seems to be very inconsistent with the general impression. However, the NATO report confirmed this fact that does not conform to common sense from the side. According to NATO surveillance and monitoring through various means, 80% of the Russian military's air force is still in a state of combat readiness, and it is a well-equipped and usable combat force. This figure is significantly higher than most countries, including the United States. In recent years, one of the big dreams of the U.S. Air Force is to increase the readiness rate of the U.S. Air Force fighter fleet to 75%. But so far, except for the F-35, it has not reached 70%. You must know that the Russian army has maintained this after a year of high-intensity use. But this also makes people suspect that this is the case, why the Ukrainian army does not seem to be fatally affected. In terms of the overall performance of the Air Force, this is mainly because the Air Force lacks direct large-scale and sustained strike capabilities in strategic depths, and cannot destroy Ukraine's war potential in this way. Since the First World War, mankind has understood that the real way to develop air supremacy should be to destroy the enemy's overall combat capability. Some theorists of air supremacy have repeatedly emphasized that the Air Force's top priority should be to blow up enemy equipment in factories, followed by blowing up assembly areas, followed by starting positions, and finally the front line. And considering that Ukraine's current overall combat potential is actually supplied by NATO, and Ukraine's equipment and ammunition all come from NATO's arsenal, it is obviously unrealistic to expect to blow them up. That means that the Russian army will launch targeted strikes against facilities such as the transportation lines of the distribution center, paralyzing the railway marshalling yards, highway hubs, and other nodes of the Ukrainian army. In fact, the air forces do not have the ability to completely destroy the overall combat potential of the Ukrainian army through air offensive campaigns by mobilizing the combat corps and troops. This requires organizing a fleet of hundreds of planes in a single day to open up several air corridors and maintain a scale of more than 1,000 sorties in a single day for several weeks or even months. Not to mention the Russian army, this capability has actually become a Cold War swan song with the relaxation of European combat readiness and the overall aging and shrinking of the US Navy and Air Force. Let all the people in the world who have witnessed or heard of the Cold War, the most glorious era of human military art and organizational art, look back, plus the complete sets of Soviet air defense equipment left over from Ukraine, dozens of battalions of S-300 long-range air defense, more than 100 units of Buk missile systems, more than 100 units of Doyle and other medium and short-range air defense systems. Ukraine is the country with the most air defense systems in the world, except China and Russia. The Russian army does not have the ability to anti-radiation and open up safe air corridors to attack sentient beings. And if the next best thing is to return the target to the direct support of the front line, then the Air Force's ground support, from a tactical point of view, is also very dependent on ground guidance. However, the ability of the Russian army to provide guidance for the frontline support of the Air Force is actually not sufficient, and it can even be said to be seriously scarce. In the era of the Soviet Army, the assault aviation was assigned to the forward command post of the Army Group Army, and was guided and commanded by an automated command system. And these things have long since ceased to exist with Serdyukov's military reforms that systematically damaged the Russian army. As a result, the Russian army cannot actually achieve good air-ground coordination. Neither the bombing aviation unit nor the frontline aviation unit can get ground guidance very well. In the absence of effective ground guidance, how ineffective the Air Force is in killing the army, you can actually see the historical combat power of the US military. The air raid on Yugoslavia lasted for 78 days, dispatched hundreds of thousands of fighter planes, and destroyed 13 tanks, 6 infantry vehicles, and 6 artillery pieces of the Yugoslav army, killing 1,008 Yugoslav soldiers and policemen. In Iraq, the largest single casualty of the British Army was caused by a mistaken attack by the US Air Force. Every year in the Middle East, the US Air Force mistakenly treats the US Army or Marine Corps as an enemy and blows them up. In order to avoid accidentally injuring friendly troops when performing close support on the contact line, the Russian Air Force can only kill according to the predetermined action plan. Planning the area ahead of time in the day's flight plan is similar to how Army Reserve Artillery prepares fire before an attack is launched. In this way, the efficiency of killing the Ukrainian army will naturally decrease, and there is no way for the Air Force to change the situation of the battle. So don't ask why the Russian Air Force has dispatched so many sorties. The Ukrainian army still exists in an organized way. Because reality is not someone's imagination. The world is physical. Military is materialistic. The efficiency of the Air Force is just that low. Finally, thanks for watching this video. If you have any opinion on this video, you can leave a message in the comment area.